Good morning and welcome to another edition of Friday's Financial Fitness. In this second part of our three-part series on retirement income, I want to share with you 3 additional risks that the retiree faces in retirement. I first will touch on the challenges that Social Security is facing. The Social Security program is referred to as a pay-as-you-go system. In other words, it is supported by the taxes from the current workers to pay the benefits of the current retirees. In this chart, it's based on information from the Social Security Administration's website, and it shows the number of people receiving benefits per 100 workers paying into the system under 3 different scenarios. And the scenarios are the low cost, intermediate cost, and high cost of Social Security. The number of beneficiaries per 100 workers, as you can see, has been steadily increasing. Further estimates vary for the 3 different scenarios, but the upward trend is generally continuing. Since the number of retirees per covered worker is expected to keep rising, a shortfall in Social Security funding is likely. To what extent that shortfall will be, of course, is anyone's guess. The second item I want to talk about is the reduction in a portfolio return over time due to inflation and taxes. As you can see by this chart, it shows the negative effects of inflation and taxes on investment returns over the long term. This is showing us the historical returns going back to 1926 for 3 different asset classes, according to Morningstar's chart. The first is stocks, and as you can see, from 1926 through the end of 2016, which is 90 years, stocks have returned around 10%. When we take out inflation, the return drops to 6.9%, and when we factor in taxes and inflation, the return drops down to 5%. If we look in the bond category, the gross or the total return was 5.5%. After inflation, it was 2.6%, and after inflation and taxes, the return drops all the way down to less than 1% at 0.6%. And lastly, as you can see, in cash, the actual after taxes and inflation return is negative. The last risk I want to share with you, and it's one of the biggest challenges for the retiree, is something called the sequence of returns. The sequence of returns simply means the order of your portfolio's return at different periods of time. As shown in this hypothetical graph, I want to show you 2 different return scenarios, both of them assuming a 50% stock and 50% bond allocation, both starting with an initial portfolio value of $500,000 and both withdrawing 5% adjusted for inflation. If we look at the graph on the left, this assumes that a person retired on January 1st of 1973, right before the bear market of 1973, and began making monthly withdrawals in January of 1973. And as you can see in this case, the result was that the portfolio ultimately ran out of money in August of 1994. Now, if you look at the graph on the right, this is a hypothetical example where the actual historical returns that occurred in the portfolio were occurring at the exact opposite or reversed order compared to the first graph. So the returns from 1994 occurred first, and then 1993, and then 1992, and all the way so that the last returns occurred in 1973. By reversing the sequence of returns, the portfolio experienced higher returns in the early years and low returns in the latter years, and as a result, the portfolio increased substantially over time, more than tripling in value, despite the ongoing 5% withdrawal rate. Obviously, this is a hypothetical example, but it highlights the importance of getting a higher rate of return on your portfolio in the beginning part of your retirement. Obviously, no one can predict what the market might do in the early years of retirement, and that is why it is particularly important in the early years to manage this risk through effective asset allocation or reducing withdrawal rates when needed. Next week, I will finish up this three-part series by focusing on withdrawal rates.